I actually moved up to Castlemilk in 1979 from Bridgeton. I'd lived in Barrowfield. There was a lot of violence there. I had to move out. Made myself intentionally homeless and was offered a house in Castlemilk on Ballantyre Road. Now, I had watched Castlemilk being built as a child. I'm 84, and always wanted to live in Castlemilk. But unfortunately, not in Ballantyre Road. The worst reputation in the whole of Glasgow. And the story was you could get a house, you could get out of Berlin quicker than you get a house out of Ballantyre. So we got together in 1981. There was only a few tenants left in Ballantyre Road with a mixture of 3, 4s and 5s, with only 9 5 apartments occupied by families. The 1 5 apartment was our office, meshite on the windows and steel doors. We had 1 colour gas fire that we used for meetings, and the fire, if the gas went out, you were frozen to the spot, you couldn't move. And I know Jim Hasty will agree to that because he was the Housing Corporation at that time. Nobody wanted to know what was happening to us. All the properties were bound up with meshite on the windows. The closest had steel doors. Our office was downstairs, the reception was there, the coordinator was upstairs, and we all smoked at meetings. And Duncan from the Housing Corporation, when he went home, his wife wouldn't let him in the door until he stripped in the garage and went back into the room. For 2 years, we'd been part of a pilot scheme with Calvi and Berlanark and Broomhouse in Uddingston to renovate an organisation ourselves. And thanks to the hard work, it succeeded. Our Labour councillor couldn't understand why we wanted all this work done to our houses, because they'd seeded our back gardens and given us new railings. And I'm afraid I told them very politely what to do with seeds. The fires were a nightmare to heat, with 1 coal fire in the living room, with sockets in the bedroom we couldn't afford to use, the electricity, we didn't have the money, and the coal, if you couldn't afford a bag of coal, you'd no hot water till your next gyro came through. One winter it was so cold, the icicles were forming on the metal frames in the windows, and my family had to bring all the mattresses down to the living room and keep the coal fire going all night. When I was learning all about housing, I found out that for every £1 I paid in rent, 70 pence of that went to pay the loan that the old Glasgow Corporation had borrowed to build the Purfell Estates. No wonder there was no money, and there was no money for investment. We went through different ideas. First of all, tenant management. That was a no-go area because the council were still in control. We didn't want that. Then it was a par value idea. We scrubbed that. And then the Housing Corporation came along and said, if you sign for the Registrar of Friendly Societies, we'll give you the money to do your houses up. Now, that was 1.5 million, because I was secretary at the time, and I remember that figure. I couldn't even have taken a Provi loan out to do that. But it was fantastic, and we had only 5% to pay back. So we were in the money. Jim Hasty and Alistair Dixon were the 2 people we worked with. The architect we worked with was Mike Thornley, and we also worked with Beth Riley, who was Mike's development officer. We would register with Friendly Society. They would give us the money. From then, it was all go. And our official opening, there was over 350 people, not all from Castlemilk, turned up to see what we had done. We had over 1,200 units, refurbished and new build, and we factored 147. We worked from a beautiful 18th century stable block, which I was involved in the restoration, and it's one of our subsidiaries. We have our own pre-5 nursery. We have our own care home for elderly men with alcohol problems. And I think our relationship with Glasgow City Council has improved. And I'll never forget a friend of mine. I was involved in the Tenants Association in Tormouth. She was a secretary, quite a loud mouth, and what she said, Anna, they're after heed if they give you the money to run things yourself. So we proved actually different. And we'll never forget with grassroots. And one of the things I've always insisted, there is no such word as no. If you want something done, they tell you no, there's another way you can do it. So that's all about the Housing Association. I'm going to bring two things up. Maureen Cope, who was the chair of Arden Glen, we were involved in the campaign for the ban the bedroom tax. We'd formed the campaign group. We're up at the exhibition centre for the Lib Dems conference. So we had banners, we had placards with ban the bedroom tax on it. And everything was going fine. All the delegates were laughing and saying good morning, but all of a sudden they changed. And it was the director of Bill and Bank shouting to Maureen, Maureen, turn your placard round. What had happened? Somebody gave Maureen a placard to hold. One side was ban the bedroom tax. The other side was Nick Clegg is a W and it rhymed with banker. So for about half an hour, we couldn't move for laughing. We were in hysterics. They forgave us because they invited us to a meeting and we met with the staff. What was it? The paper, the Guardian, right? So the second morning we went down to London for the debate on the bedroom tax, travelled down the Monday night, stayed overnight. Tuesday morning we were going to a meeting in one of the big rooms. It was all different groups, mostly disability groups. And it got rather heated because these people, they needed the room for either equipment or carers. But then all of a sudden, near lunchtime, this guy came in and went, you'll have to vacate the room. We don't think you'll get to the debate. There's an unidentified package we found on the green. But when we came out, Maureen went, if that's so, why is all the staff come in with sandwiches and juice? But anyway, we decided to look for somewhere to get a coffee. So this big guy came up, Jan, you're living on, I'll take you along to my office. We didn't know it was the House of Lords. It was all glass. We get by the police with the submachine guns and the security. These are my guests. So we're talking about to this guy, Godfrey, I'll never forget his name, we gave out a business card, said, right, if you're ever in Glasgow, come to Castlemilk, we'll show you around. That was fine. Maureen wasn't feeling well, but we went to the debate in Parliament, and with these goodie bags with his House of Lords, never thinking anything about it. But that night we were coming up the road, and we were in Euston Station waiting the train. This guy comes up, suited, booted, earpieces in, and where are you going? I said, we're going back to Glasgow. Don't you worry, I'll have you seated. A first-class compartment before any other passengers got on. That was fine. We came up the road, I dropped Maureen off, and my oldest son's got an IQ about 500. And he went, where did you get the bags? I said, well, I should got them. We're in the House of Lords and we were talking to people. He went, do you know who mans the House of Lords? I went, no. He went, MI5. So I should phone Maureen right away. But what Maureen has said, both of us can talk for Scotland. They would have sent us up in the next plane anyway. So the things I've learned about housing, about people, and that's one of the best things. It's all about our tenants. We listen to what they say. We don't tell them what we want to do. Everything we do is for the sake of the tenants and for the sake of Castlemilk. Oh.